Man, chased from Kenya over snatching President Moi's girlfriend. The scandal that shook Nairobi. In the early 1990s, Nairobi was alive with the pulse of Congolese Rumba. The music of Kanda Bongo Man, with his infectious Kwasa Kwasa dance rhythms, had captivated East Africa. Clubs throbbed with his hits, radio stations looped his melodies, and fans regarded him as a superstar who bridged Kinshasa and Nairobi with sound. Yet, behind the frenzy of guitars and drums, a shadow was gathering. Rumors began to swirl that the charming singer, adored by thousands, had crossed an invisible line. He was said to be entangled in an affair with a woman linked to the inner circles of President Daniel Arap Moi. The whispers grew louder. Names were suggested, and one name rose above them all. Catherine Kasavuli. She was not just a woman of elegance, but a public figure, a news anchor who had broken barriers as the first to read live news on KTN. Linking her to the charismatic musician was enough to ignite the most dangerous of storms. For in Moi's Kenya, power was jealously guarded, and any suggestion that a common man, even a famous one, was meddling with a woman close to the presidency was intolerable. By 1991, the rumors had become so charged that Kanda Bongo Man, who had once been embraced with open arms, found himself deported from Kenya. The official explanations were vague, but in the smoky bars of Nairobi, in matatus weaving through traffic, in offices where workers gossiped over tea, the explanation was simple. Kanda had been caught in the arms of Catherine Kasavuli. Kanda Bongo Man, the king of Kwasa Kwasa. To understand the depth of the scandal, one must first understand the man at its center. Born in Inongo in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kanda Bongo Man was not just another musician. He was a revolution in rhythm. In the 1980s, he had pioneered the Kwasa Kwasa dance style, introducing a sound that made hips sway and hearts race across Africa. His voice, high-pitched and emotional, carried stories of love and longing, while his melodies invited joy. Kenya, in particular, had embraced him. Nairobi's nightlife pulsed with his music. He performed in packed halls where businessmen, politicians, students, and workers danced side by side. For many, Kanda was not simply an entertainer. He was a cultural bridge. His tours were eagerly anticipated, and his name was synonymous with celebration. It was within this adoration that his troubles began. Fame, especially in politically tense environments, can be both a blessing and a curse. For a man adored by women, praised by crowds, and envied by rivals, it took only one rumor to ignite suspicion at the highest levels. The star and the news queen, Catherine Kasavuli, was not just any woman. She was a pioneer in Kenyan media, a voice and face that millions trusted. Her calm presence on television and her grace off-screen made her a household name. As the first female TV news anchor in Kenya, she carried not only authority, but also a touch of glamour that the public admired. To link her with Kanda Bongo Man was explosive. She was not merely a private citizen. She was a public figure whose life was lived in front of the camera. For her, the rumor was more than just gossip. It was a direct attack on her reputation, her dignity, and her career. Yet the whispers persisted, fueled by the allure of imagining a love story between the suave Congolese musician and the polished Kenyan anchor. Kasavuli, at the time, firmly denied ever meeting Kanda. She maintained that the allegations were baseless and unfair, insisting that her life had been dragged into a storm she did not create. But in the political environment of Moi's Kenya, where even rumors could dictate policy and personal freedoms, her denials mattered little. The narrative had taken a life of its own. Rumors, whispers, and shadows. Kenya in the 1990s was a land where power dictated truth. Political gossip was as potent as legislation, and when stories involved the head of state, they spread like wildfire. Some whispered that it was indeed President Moi's mistress, whom Kanda had entangled himself with. Others speculated that it was a mistress of another powerful cabinet minister. Still others swore it was Catherine Kasavuli. The uncertainty only added fuel. For those outside the corridors of power, truth was inaccessible, but rumor was irresistible. Nairobi thrives on gossip, and in those days, the tale of Kanda Bongo Man and Kasavuli was too thrilling to ignore. How could a foreign musician, beloved by fans, dare trespass into the private domain of Kenya's ruling elite? The story gained traction because it had all the elements of tragedy: power, fame, forbidden love, and punishment. Kanda was suddenly no longer the hero of the dance floor, but a man accused of arrogance, of reaching for what was not his. And when the government acted by deporting him, the gossip hardened into belief. After all, why would he be chased out of Kenya if there was no truth to the story? Moi'S Kenya: power, women, and control. President Daniel Arap Moi's rule was marked by a blend of paternalism and iron grip. To many, he was Baba wa Taifa, a father of the nation. But to others, he was a man whose government tolerated no dissent, no scandal, and no humiliation. In such a climate, the personal lives of leaders and those close to them were not matters of private concern. They were affairs of state. If indeed Kanda Bongo Man was seen to have crossed into the personal territory of Moi or his closest allies, his fate was sealed. Deportation was a simple yet effective message. Stay away. No trial, no explanation, just the swift machinery of state ensuring that boundaries were respected. It is in this context that the alleged link to Katherine Kasavuli became so potent. Whether or not the rumor was true, it symbolized the fragility of reputation in a nation where power could exile a man overnight. Kasavuli herself was caught in a cruel bind, unable to control the gossip, yet forced to live under its shadow. Kasavuli speaks for Catherine Kasavuli. The rumors were deeply unjust. She was building a career based on professionalism and integrity. To have her name dragged into a scandal with a musician she insisted she had never met was both humiliating and damaging. She denied the allegations, repeatedly distancing herself from the story. Years later, when Kanda Bongo Man finally returned to Kenya after Moi's retirement in 2002, fate placed her at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. A minister had taken her along to meet Kanda. It was a moment charged with irony. After years of gossip, the two individuals at the center of it all stood face to face. Kanda, gracious but uneasy, denied knowing her and apologized for the inconveniences his name had caused her. For Kasavuli, it was a bittersweet moment, finally meeting the man with whom she had been linked for a decade, only to confirm that the rumor had stolen years of peace from her life. The deportation night accounts of the night of deportation remain hazy, but what is clear is that Kanda Bongo Man was forced out swiftly. He had performed, he had enthralled, but now he was no longer welcome. At Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, he was escorted onto a plane and told never to return. For a man who loved Kenya and whose music had been embraced by its people, the punishment was crushing. Fans were left bewildered, wondering why their star had been taken away. The government offered no explanations. It didn't need to. In Moi's Kenya, action spoke louder than words, and the message was unmistakable. Some lines cannot be crossed. Exile and silence. For over a decade, Kanda Bongo Man lived in exile from Kenya. He performed across the world, kept his fame alive, but a part of him remained wounded. In interviews, he would skirt around the subject, never offering full clarity, but never dismissing the pain either. He confessed later that on 3 occasions he had attempted to sneak back into Kenya, desperate to reconnect with a woman named Wahito, the true love he claimed had inspired one of his songs. Each time he was stopped at the airport and deported again. This revelation complicated the story. If Wahito was his love, where did Kasavuli fit into the scandal? Was her name merely dragged into a political storm as a cover? Was she an innocent bystander to whispers that were never about her in the first place? The ambiguity has never been fully resolved. Return and the airport meeting. When Moi retired in 2002, the grip of fear loosened slightly. Kanda Bongo Man seized the chance to return to Kenya. It was a triumphant comeback for fans who had waited years to dance to his music again. Yet his return was not without drama. At JKIA, in a carefully orchestrated moment, he was introduced to Kasavuli. He apologized to her, denied ever knowing her, and expressed regret that his name had been tied to hers. For Kasavuli, the moment was surreal. For years, she had been haunted by a rumor that had no basis, and here was the man finally clearing her name. Yet the scars of gossip run deep. An apology could not erase the years of whispers, the damage to reputation, or the pain of association. The wounds of rumors. Rumors are cruel because they do not need truth to survive. For both Kanda Bongo Man and Catherine Kasavuli, the scandal left wounds that never fully healed. For Kanda, the deportation cut him off from a country he loved. For Kasavuli, the whispers robbed her of peace, forcing her to live under the shadow of a lie. In the years that followed, both continued their lives. Kasavuli became a celebrated media icon, mentoring younger journalists and leaving a legacy of professionalism. Kanda continued to perform worldwide, his music immortalizing the joys and sorrows of love. Yet, in Kenyan popular memory, their names remain forever linked, a reminder of how rumor and power can shape destiny. Legacy of a scandal. Today, the story of Kanda Bongo Man and Catherine Kasavuli lingers as one of Nairobi's most unforgettable scandals. It is retold in whispers, in nostalgic recollections of the Moi era, in the way fans interpret old songs with new meaning. Whether it was ever true or not matters less than the fact that it changed lives. For Kanda, it was a lesson in the dangers of fame and the fragility of acceptance. For Kasavuli, it was proof that a woman's reputation could be endangered by forces beyond her control. For Kenyans, it remains a tale of power, music, and forbidden whispers, a story where truth and rumor merged to create a legend. In the end, the human cost was real. Careers were strained, hearts were wounded, and a musician was exiled. The scandal of Kanda Bongo Man and Catherine Kasavuli stands as a cautionary tale, not only of love and power, but of how society consumes and destroys its own myths.